Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, guys. Today we're going to talk about history, okay? History of Trinitarian doctrines. I feel like the more you understand the context of the development of the Trinity and how there are different strands. So today we'll focus on mainly the three main strands that came out of the after the Council of Nicaea in 325. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So I have a paper here, History of Trinitarian Doctrines. If you want to read more about this issue, and different developments and stuff from from beginning, like first century till the end. You'll see it in this paper. A very nice paper by Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I've actually quoted this before, but what I want to focus on is the three main strands, because these, I believe, two of them are very important. That's one you meet with most Christians today, but there's also another one that came out of that, and I want you to understand this. So remember, the Council of Nicaea is 325, okay, 325. Now, before that, we have many popular Christian fathers. Maybe that time it was not that structured, but they were Christian theologians. The most popular of them, Justin Martyr, Tertullian, Origen of Alexandria, Clement of Alexandria, all of them like that. They had something they called Logos theology, okay, which is a subordinationist kind of theology. So the critique of that, and I'll show you, by the way, critique of each one of them. The point is that before the Council of Nicaea, around the second century, the first century, second century, all those Christians, they were using a kind of philosophy where there's an hierarchy of beings. Okay, so you have the Father, and then you have the Son, who is the Logos, and they use John chapter 1. So it was as hierarchical, right from Justin. Justin is very early on, Justin Martyr, like around second century, very early on. And he was using, he clearly stated this, okay? And I've said it in other quotes, but I want to focus on after the Council of Nicaea. That's around the 4th century, okay? 325. Now, what was happening in this time is that it became canonical, okay? There was an ecumenical council in 325. And then they stated the homoousion doctrine. If you have heard this, homoousios, okay? That doctrine, we said, is homoousios and stuff, but many people had different understandings. That was where they classed the Arians as heretics. But something is very important. We will discuss three figures, okay? And I'll even throw in Dr. Bo Branson here to show you that this is exactly what's going on. So you had someone called Eusebius of Caesarea, okay? Eusebius of Caesarea is a very, very important figure in Christian history, especially when it comes to history. He's remembered for his historical contributions, because he wrote books of history. He wrote like many things, like it's very, very important figure for them in history, because he was an historian, okay? But there's something about Eusebius of Caesarea. He was not just an historian. He's remembered for his history works, but he's not really remembered for his theological works also. He had a theology, and it was so important that in the Council of Nicaea, he was part of the main figures there, okay? So what was his understanding? That's the first figure. And then we'll talk about later, like the three strands I will just show you. Okay. Now, Eusebius of Caesarea, he was an Origenist. Okay. That's his own form of the Trinity. So his own form of the Trinity is also hierarchical. The Origenist kind of Trinitarian doctrine is hierarchical because they use Logos theology. Okay. So they emphasize on the Logos a lot, and they talk about why the Logos is, and that's why Athanasius, another important figure, Athanasius, he was the one that succeeded this Alexander of Alexandria, who was the bishop of Alexandria in Egypt, where the whole controversy started. Athanasius was the one that carried on after Alexander died, okay? Or he was too old and this guy just took over. So Athanasius later condemned Eusebius of Caesarea, but don't ever underestimate the power that Eusebius of Caesarea had at that time. Okay, he was literally the main figure in the East. Okay, the East, he was the main figure there. Eusebius of Caesarea, it was very influential. Okay, so what was happening is that his own theology is that you have the Father, okay, and the Father has a Logos. That Logos, okay, is inferior to the Father. Just understand that it's inferior to the Father. However, the way they make it sound is like this. Okay, so you have Origen. You see, if you want to understand Eusebius of Caesarea's understanding, just read Origen. Origen was a very, very knowledgeable scholar, and he wrote a lot of works. Okay, so Let me see if I can find one quote from Origin to make you understand this theology about this. Okay, wait a moment, guys. Okay, so this is Origin of Alexandria. In this paper, you find it. Okay, he said, the God and the Father who holds the universe together is superior to every being that exists, for he gives to each one of them from his own existence that which each one is. The Son, being less than the Father, is superior to rational creatures alone, and the Holy Spirit is still less than the Son, okay, and dwells within the saints alone. So this is the hierarchical notion I'm telling you about, okay. So why did Eusebius sign the old homoousios doctrine, like they were one substance and all this stuff? Because that language, that homoousios language, was not understood the same way across borders. And the three views I'm going to give you today, you see that they didn't understand. The homoousios thing was just to kick out the Arians, okay, because the Arians, they had a much more, even though some people consider even Arians like Origenists, but Arius was much more clear on his views in such a way that they just kicked him out. But just pay attention, guys. So Eusebius was an Origenist, and his doctrine was like this. And that's why Athanasius later condemned him as semi-Arian, okay? Because they claimed that he wasn't clear about his the way he taught, okay? But everyone knows, like, he was doing logos theology. If you read his works, you see the subordination. So let's just class that as the subordinationist view. The subordinationist view is where the Father is greater than the Son, and the Son is greater than the Holy Spirit. Now, as a Muslim, what is our critique of this one? It's just that anyone that is inferior cannot be God. So the Father alone will be God in this sense, right? Only the Father will be God. Now, how do these people how do they avoid polytheism? Because I already told you guys, remember this. Polytheism doesn't mean the gods have to be equal. Remember that. The gods, they don't have to be equal to be a polytheist. You just have to have multiple gods. Whether they are inferior to each other, it doesn't matter. We can go and talk about if that is possible. Like if you use perfect being theology. Do you think polytheists, they use perfect being theology? Does Zeus and all those people, do they think there is perfect being theology? Of course not. Okay? So that is that. So they used to affirm monotheism by saying they work together. They are functionally one. Okay? So Origin gave an analogy of the couple, a couple. So you have a couple, one flesh. They become one flesh. The wife and the man and the wife, they become one flesh. But we understand this is functional oneness. It's not literally that they are one. So there are really two beings there, which will be polytheistic. So, but some of them, even talking about the dynamic monarchians, they will just say the Father is God. But that's one strand. The first strand is subordinationist. Now, the second strand that later became popular, okay? Now, this is where the Eastern and the Western view will come into play. The Eastern view and the Western view on that language even of homoousios, I'll show you how it's not the same. So now, from the Eastern guys, you have all these Gregory of Nyssa, Gregory of Nazianzus, Basil of Caesarea, okay? And later on, it became even people like, and contemporarily, remember this guy, what's his name? Dr. Bo Branson, okay? In fact, he wrote a paper, Dr. Bo Branson wrote a paper about why, that the Augustinian, which is the next one we'll talk about, the Augustinian form of the Trinity is not the same. In fact, he said, there's another, Dr. Deotog, who actually wrote this paper. Dr. Bo Branson was saying, see, your critique of the Trinity only works for the Augustinian kind of Trinity, not the one that is in the East. Somehow that's a claim that they're making. And even people like the Eastern guys, they know it's not the same that they're talking about. Even since apart from the filioque distinction that later happened, which just adds to the problem, they didn't have the same conception because of the language. You know, some people are using persona, some people are using hypostasis. There was even problem with even just these two distinctions of what does this language mean to us. This one seems to be like a mode. This one seems to be like real persons, okay? Which is what we'll talk about now. Remember, Eusebius of Caesarea is the first one you should learn. This very important figure was subordinationist, Origenist kind of theology about the Trinity. The second people are the Eastern guys. The Eastern guys, they thought the persons were real persons. So it's not just logos, okay? They are not just talking about logos like the way the Eusebius of Caesarea is talking about. Whether it's not like a part of the Father. there were three hypostases. That's the language they use. Hypostasis is a bearer of a nature, and hypostasis bears a nature. Okay, so this is why Gregory of Nyssa, he gave an analogy of three men, that they have one human nature, but they are three persons. Even though he said this analogy is not perfect, but it gives us what he's thinking about. They are thinking about it in the sense of a universal nature that can be possessed by individuals, distinct individuals. That's what it seems like. And that is why it is more proper for them to say they are persons. They are three persons, three distinct persons, each one of them fully divine. These are the Eastern guys. Okay, majority of them is like that. And Dr. Branson, for example, he also thinks there are three persons, really three persons, each one of them having even two natures, the hypostatic nature and the divine nature. Even though the divine nature is the same one, but the hypostatic nature is different. So which shows you that this is a very different one. And now Dr. Branson adds on to that only the Father is properly God because of the monarchy of the Father. But the Son and the Holy Spirit are also fully God. Okay, so that is the own nature, notion of the Trinity. There are three selves, kind of the Trinity. Three selves. There are three selves. There are three persons. See, understand the distinction they're making. There are really three persons there. It's not like some kind of mode or some kind of united something. No, three persons, distinct. Each one of them fully God. That's their own task, to show that they are each fully divine. So, the problem they have is that it seems to be tritheistic, okay? It seems to be tritheistic. Just like when we have three men, we should have three men. If you have three gods, three hypostases, sharing one ousia, one universal nature, it should be three gods. Exactly. So, this is the problem they deal with. How do you make it not tritheistic? And many Protestant scholars, I think they follow this kind of view of three selves. The ones I know anyway, like the popular ones like Dr. Richard Swinburne, and I think even Dr. Van Inwagen, and who else? Michael Heiser, or something like this. Many of them like this, they are social Trinitarians. You see the social Trinitarians? This is their lineage. These are the people, social Trinitarians, okay? So tritheism is their main problem. They affirm equality within the persons. Remember Eusebius one? They were not equal. This one, they are equal. Guys, I feel hot. Sorry. Let me put the ace. So these guys, they are equal, co-equal, co-eternal, co-everything. Whereas the one of Eusebius of Caesarea, they're hierarchical. So we can just use perfect being theology to eliminate the other two. But here, they are co-equal, co-eternal, co-everything. They claim that they are not subordinate. You can still critique it using aseity and many other things. Okay, we're not even talking about aseity, like all this begetting stuff. I'm just showing you that even their understanding of the Trinity, we have three strands here after the Council of Nicaea. One faded away. The one of Eusebius of Caesarea, that one faded away quickly. The one that remains with us is the last two that we're discussing now. The one of the Eastern Fathers, which later, if you want to see like a form of it, is in Dr. Branson, okay? There are really three selves. I'm emphasizing on it because the next one we're going to, which is the Augustinian view. Let me even turn to the page of the Augustinian, okay? The Augustinian view, on the other hand, Augustine is they are the Western guys, the Latin. You see, this one is the Greek. The Greek hypostasis and ousia, all those things, they are Greek concepts, okay? So the Latin people, when they came, they are like, what does this thing, how do we translate this into our own stuff? But this is a very simplistic view. But the point is, the language difference is there, and there was controversy on what the language, what it means, and how can we understand it. What it later came to be, if you want to see a view of it, is you'll find it in the Saint Augustine, and even Thomas Aquinas later. But Saint Augustine was around 5th century, right, or 6th century, and is the one that you see him proposing this view. So them, they don't think there are three persons. Remember, the first one is subordinationist. The second one, you have three persons, three real persons. The third one now, the Western guys, there's only one person. Maybe we shouldn't even call it a person. There's only one self, okay? One self with three different aspects. That is how it makes sense to us. Because what do you call this? I'll show you some analogy that he gave to buttress this point, so that you understand, like, these are not three persons in the sense of the Eastern guys, and everyone understands this right now. Everyone knows this now, and even though Dr. Branson points this out to show that that the critique of Dr. De Toggi works only for, that's his claim anyway, that it works only for the Augustinian view, that doesn't work for the Eastern view. That's what they're trying to. So there's a divide, a real divide between the East and the West on what does the Trinity mean. Once you understand that, you see, like, depends on who you're talking to. I always emphasize this point. Who are you talking to, so that you understand the context. Okay, so let me just show you some of the things that Augustine said. Okay, according to this paper, let me see. I want to show you about the persons, what he actually said about the persons. Okay. Okay, so his emphasis was on this. His emphasis was to say that, see, we are not modalist. That's what he said. We are not modalists. So we will say there are three somethings there. There are three somethings, because that's the mistake of the Sabellian. Sabellianism is modalism. So he's saying there are three somethings, whatever they are, and he will give example later. But they are not three persons the way you are thinking, the way the Eastern guys are thinking. No. He said there are three somethings. That's all you need to say to be orthodox, according to Augustine. You have to affirm that there are some three things there. And this is what later became the problem of Aquinas. Aquinas also had to affirm some three things there, even with his very strong notion of absolute divine simplicity. By the way, even St. Augustine, this is where all this divine simplicity start from, these people. Okay, the point is, even Thomas Aquinas later, he had to affirm some three things, so we call them three relations, right? This is the Western guys. This is the Western guys. This is how they understand the Trinity. They are not really three persons like hypostasis, possessing divine nature and stuff. They are part of one self, one thing, just different aspects. And this is why the critique that some Christians are even laying to the Muslims, that affirm attributes. We'll show you many things later, but the point is, now you see the difference. In the case of the Eastern guys, they will be talking about co-equality. Let's make them co-equal. And in the case of the Western guys, or St. Augustine and those that followed him, there's just one thing there. There's no point in even comparing them, to me. If there's only one thing, why would you be comparing a thing to itself? It's just there. It's just one thing. Okay, so let me see another thing he says. Yeah, he said there are not three selves. Okay, according to this paper, there are not three selves. And yeah, that was his point. Now let me show you what he meant by the persons. Okay, he gave several philosophical analogies to understand this. He said this is one of them: the lover, the loved object, and the lover's love for that object. Okay, tell me those are three persons. Okay, and when you to become clearer later, I will tell you in a single line what he's actually talking about. Okay, imagine this one: existing, knowing that one exists, loving the fact that one exists. Okay, existing is the first person, quote unquote person. Knowing that one exists, the knowledge of your existence, is the second person. And then the love you have for yourself is the third person. That is the three somethings that he was talking about. These are not hypostasis, possessing divine nature and stuff like that. This is just, like I put it in that other video, the self-reflection of God on himself. So God knows himself. The fact that God knows himself and understands himself, that is the Trinity. God's self-reflection. Because when you reflect on yourself, an image is created of knowledge. That image is you, isn't it? Is you. And that is the second person. And the act of reflection is the third person. This is why this is a kind of aspectival doctrine of the Trinity. There's only one self there with three aspects, okay, which are not really three persons. So understand this distinction I've made there. In the case of Eusebius of Caesarea, there will be three persons, but they are not equal. They are subordinate to each other. So that one will just kick the other subordinate ones out, and there will only be one left, the Father. Okay, and their idea about tritheism objection, we can still charge them with tritheism. Okay, then you have the Eastern guys. Them, they are from equality, and the persons are really three persons. They are really three persons. They are not just lover reflecting on himself. No, three persons with full divine nature. Okay, these are the social Trinitarians and the Eastern guys. Okay, and you can charge them with tritheism. Those guys, you can charge them with tritheism, and if you want to go deeper, you can charge them. You can even eliminate the other two by saying that they don't have aseity, which is what I've been doing. So you can do that also. And then the last one, the what's it called? the Augustinian Western conception of the Trinity, where there's only one self there. So it's kind of monotheistic, but it's aspectival, such that it's a waste of time to be saying that, like, the aspect is like 3 aspects of one thing. You shouldn't be even comparing them. So you have one God, per se, you have one God in a way, but the problem or the contradiction comes. Let me now show you where the contradiction is, and this is exactly what Dr. Branson points out, that the contradiction comes when you say each one of them is God. See the analogy you are giving: existing, knowing that one exists, loving the fact that one exists, or the minds remembering God, understanding God, willing God. These are the 3 persons analogy. How can each one of these be God, will be fully God? No, that is what the Eastern guys can say, not you. If you say that, and then you are still saying the Trinity, okay, so let me just put it to you. According to Augustine and these people, the Trinity is God. Okay, there's only one thing there. You are just even Thomas Aquinas later. There's only one God, the Trinity. 3 relations in one God. There's only one God with 3 relations. So the Eastern guys, they will call them out. You cannot eat your cake and have it. If you say there's one God, then those relations cannot be God too. Each one of the relations cannot be God. That's the logical problem of the Trinity. So at the end of the day, you just have to say, you know what? These are 3 aspects, and none of them can be fully God. The entire thing is God. Okay? So the Son of God is not God. He's an aspect of God. The entire thing, the Trinity, is what is God. Right? So I hope you benefit from this video. I see we already passed 20 minutes mark. I just want to give you some history of what happened after the Council of Nicaea in 325, and how 3 strands came out. 2 is the one that we still have today, between the Eastern and the Western understanding of the Trinity. So you see the Western guys, they affirm absolute divine simplicity, which just makes them even much more united, much more one. So they have like really oneness over there. When they try to say that the persons that are fully divine, they're just going to run into contradictions. Okay, so what is your critique of them? It seems to be monotheistic, but you can show logical contradiction which you can actually disagree with all of this. By the way, I'm just showing you based on logic, just analyzing it purely. You will see like he's much more monotheistic than the other ones, because these are aspects. Okay, and they might not want to call them aspects, but they are aspects from what we've seen from here. Okay, so I hope you benefit. Let me see what you guys think about this, and I'll keep making some other videos from other people that I have over here. So let me see what you think. I hope you benefit from this video. See you guys later. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.